the supreme leader. On June 27, 1981, a bomb went off inside a mosque in Tehran during a speech. The blast shattered Ali Khamenei's right arm, permanently paralyzing it. He was 42 years old. Most people in his position would have stepped back. He didn't. He kept climbing. 8 years later, when Iran's founding supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini died, Khamenei was handpicked to replace him. Not because he was the most powerful cleric in the room, he wasn't, but because he was loyal, calculating, and willing to do what others wouldn't. For 36 years after that, he ruled Iran as its supreme leader, the most powerful man in the country, above the president, above the courts, above the military. For 36 years, he had absolute authority over the nuclear program, the armed forces, and every major political decision the Islamic Republic made. He crushed protest movements and oversaw the killing of thousands of demonstrators during the largest uprising since the Islamic Revolution. By early 2026, Khamenei was 86 years old and increasingly reclusive. He was rarely seen in public. The bunker beneath his compound in central Tehran was so deep that the elevator alone took more than 5 minutes to reach it. He had survived a bomb. He had survived assassinations. He had survived wars on his borders and revolutions in his streets. He believed he was unreachable. He was wrong. The start of the war. On the morning of February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated military operation against Iran. It was called Operation Epic Fury by the Pentagon and Operation Roaring Lion by Israel. The stated goals were to destroy Iran's missile arsenal, cripple its proxy networks, and prevent the country from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. But there was a fourth objective that neither government officially announced: kill the leadership. And at the top of that list was Khamenei. The trigger was the collapse of nuclear negotiations. For weeks, American and Iranian diplomats had been meeting in Oman, trying to reach a new deal. Those talks fell apart on February 27th. Trump demanded Iran give up uranium enrichment entirely. Khamenei refused. Less than 24 hours later, the bombs were falling. At 2:30 in the morning U.S. Eastern Time, Trump released a pre-recorded video from Mar-a-Lago. While he was speaking, the first strikes were already hitting Tehran. The deadly strike. It was early Saturday morning in Iran, the first day of the work and school week. The city was waking up, and then the explosions started. Massive blasts ripped through downtown Tehran during the morning rush hour. Black smoke rose from the presidential palace, the Ministry of Defense, and the compound where Khamenei lived and worked. Residents described jets overhead and missiles going off in every direction. Children ran out of schools. People fled into the streets. Communications in Tehran dropped to 54% of normal capacity within minutes as Iran tried to cut the internet. The Israeli portion of the operation was the largest Air Force mission in Israel's history. Around 200 Israeli fighter jets hit approximately 500 targets across Iran, dropping more than 550 munitions in a single coordinated wave. Air defense systems, ballistic missile launch sites, military airfields, and command infrastructure were hit across Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, Kermanshah, Tabriz, and Shiraz. On the American side, destroyers in the Persian Gulf and Mediterranean fired Tomahawk cruise missiles at IRGC command centers and missile production facilities. 7 Israeli missiles confirmed striking the district where Khamenei's compound was located. According to U.S. and Israeli intelligence officials, the CIA had spent months tracking Khamenei's movements and patterns. He had become so paranoid since the 12-day war with Israel in June 2025 that he rarely left his compound, and when he did, it was unpredictable. But the intelligence teams learned something crucial. A meeting of senior Iranian officials was scheduled to take place at his compound on the morning of February 28th. That intelligence changed everything. A senior U.S. defense official later said there was a deliberate decision to accelerate the strike timeline and take the target of opportunity. Khamenei was in his office inside Beit Rabari, his compound, when the missiles hit. According to Iranian state media, he was carrying out his assigned duties. He was not hiding. He was not in a bunker. He was at his desk. The strike leveled the buildings around him. Israeli intelligence officials later said his body was recovered from the rubble and identified. Khamenei was not the only one killed. IRGC Commander Major General Mohammad Pakpour was killed in the opening wave. Defense Minister Brigadier General Amir Nasserzadeh was killed. Ali Shamkhani, Khamenei's personal advisor and Secretary of the Supreme Defense Council, was killed. 4 senior commanders from Iran's intelligence ministry were killed. Israeli officials stated they had targeted 30 key leaders simultaneously across 3 separate sites, where gatherings of senior officials were taking place. U.S. intelligence sources reported approximately 40 Iranian officials killed in total across all the strikes. Khamenei's daughter, son-in-law, grandchild, and daughter-in-law were also killed in the strike on his compound, according to Iranian state media. Iran initially denied everything. The foreign ministry called Khamenei safe and sound. State-aligned outlets claimed he was commanding the field. But Netanyahu went on television and said there were many signs that Iran's supreme leader was no longer with us. Trump posted on social media that Khamenei was dead. Hours later, on Sunday morning, Iranian state media confirmed it. A broadcaster on live state television broke down in tears as he read the announcement. The supreme leader had been martyred at his workplace. The government declared 40 days of national mourning and a week of public holidays. Global reactions. The reaction across Iran split almost instantly. In parts of Tehran, residents opened their windows and played music. People cheered from apartment balconies. Witnesses reported loud celebrations in multiple neighborhoods as news spread. Similar scenes erupted in Los Angeles, home to one of the world's largest Iranian exile communities, where thousands poured into the streets. Many Iranians who had spent years watching Khamenei's security forces gun down protesters in the streets felt no grief. But those images were only half the story. Across Iran, millions came out to mourn. In Tehran, Mashhad, Isfahan, and Qom, enormous crowds filled the streets dressed in black, carrying portraits of Khamenei and chanting. State media broadcast scenes of thousands weeping at makeshift memorials. The funeral procession drew some of the largest crowds Iran had seen in decades, comparable to the mourning after the death of Revolutionary Guard commander Qasem Soleimani in 2020, whose assassination by the U.S. had similarly united large parts of Iranian society in grief and anger. Whatever Iranians thought of Khamenei personally, many saw the killing as a foreign attack on their country's sovereignty, and they showed up. In Iraq, crowds stormed the U.S. consulate in Karachi. Protests broke out in multiple countries with large Shia Muslim populations. Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, called the killing a great crime and vowed it would not go unanswered. The IRGC announced the start of what it called the most intense offensive operation in the history of Iran's armed forces. Within hours, barrages of ballistic missiles and drones were launched at Israel, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Iran also shut the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil transit routes in the world, to all shipping traffic. 3 vessels were struck by projectiles. Jordan, which hosts major U.S. military installations, shot down 49 Iranian drones and missiles threatening its territory. The aftermath. The economic impact was immediate. Oil prices surged on global markets as the Strait of Hormuz closure triggered fears of a prolonged disruption to Gulf energy exports. Around 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that waterway. Airlines suspended flights across the Middle East. Markets across Europe and Asia opened sharply lower. Analysts warned that if the closure lasted more than a few days, energy prices globally could reach levels not seen in years. World leaders reacted within hours, some condemning the strike as a violation of sovereignty, others calling it a turning point. Ali Khamenei had survived a bomb in 1981 that permanently paralyzed his right arm. He had outlasted wars, revolutions, and decades of sanctions. In the end, it was a scheduled meeting at his own compound, tracked for months by American intelligence. If you'd like to see more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.